Hi there, Transformers fans. This is Dylan.
And this is Aaron.
And today we're taking a look at the Fall of Cybertron Generations Voyager Grimlock. Now, this figure is something a lot of people have been looking forward to for quite some time, especially when the Fall of Cybertron game was being announced and we saw the concept art of Grimlock. And for the most part, I think this figure lives up to the hype, but it does suffer from a few issues that have been plaguing the toy line recently.
Yeah, I mean, right here straight on, the robot mode's really good. You've got really broad shoulders. I mean, he looks tough. He looks, amazing. The sword is great. You've got those nice big chunky feet, and he stands straight up really nice.
Yeah, and it's like, especially just the overall shape of it is just so Grimlock. And
yeah, the chest piece, you've got nice black paint here, and you've even got the clear red in multiple spots here. Almost light piping, but you're not really going to get any light through the back there. But it does give you a nice little effect. And you've got the light piping on the head there, which I really do like the small head. It really makes him look big and beefy.
yeah, it's a very G1 inspired look they got going on. You just look at this guy and you think Grimlock.
Yeah, right from the front, and as far as articulation goes, he's not bad. He's got, a lot of these they're ratchet joints here, and up on the arm too, as you can hear there. The problem is though, the leg ones are pretty good. They're nice and smooth, and you can get a lot of motion there. The shoulder ones I don't really like though. They're really stiff.
Just really tough, yeah.
Especially on my figure anyways. His one arm going down, you can see there, it does not want to go, and it feels like I'm gonna break a joint in here.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. It just sounds like eventually it's gonna snap. And also too, we should point out that these legs right here, it's just, if you can see inside there, you got to be careful when you're bending it because it can pop off just like that. It's kind of unstable, especially just on this calf area right there.
Yeah, he stands up straight really good, but some of the poses can be hard to do because of those ratchets and because of how stiff they are. But straight on, he's really good. And then you turn him around and look at his back. And you've got the backpack here, and then you've got all of this hollowness here, which is a problem I've been having with a lot of the new figures. I mean, this is just, it's super thin, it feels cheap, and even his whole chest piece, if we flip this up a little bit here, you can see this is all hollow in here.
100% hollow in there.
And super thin, just really thin.
And I'm not sure if it was purely for cost-cutting measures, but there's also a gimmick where you press this lever right here, and his head glows up in dinosaur mode, which we'll get to in a bit. But it illuminates the front section, which is kind of cool, but I really hope they didn't sacrifice filling out the inside of his guts purely for that gimmick.
Yeah, definitely, because I'd rather, if they could have had him feel a little sturdier, I would have rather had that.
But there are a lot of upsides besides what we've talked about. I mean, the paint apps on this guy are great. He's got a lot of red paint apps. He's got some gold here and there on his legs, on his chest. The plastic on his weapons in particular looks really cool. It's very this kind of bright orange that just looks really, really glowy and just very interesting.
Yeah, I really do like this sword a lot. I mean, I can't say enough about that sword. The shield, I think, is a little small. Yeah, I mean, he's not really going to protect himself with that thing. And it as beefy as he looks, it just makes the shield look wimpy. I mean, I think you pull the shield off, and I think he looks better without it.
Perhaps a third-party company at some point will come out with a more game-accurate shield. It's just, this thing is, as cool as it looks, it's just way too small.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice detail there, but it's something that I choose not to use when I'm posing him.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a look at the alt mode, which I think just everything goes wrong there, personally.
Well, yeah, I agree for the most part, but you know what?
we'll take a look at
We'll
it.
take a look at it. We'll see what happens. Alright, so here we have Grimlock in his T-Rex mode. Yeah, right off the bat, I just want to say, as much problems as Aaron's probably going to have with this dinosaur mode, I think from the front, it doesn't look too bad, and maybe even kind of from an angle, but really what it suffers from is just the proportions are just really out of whack, especially on the tail and on the head.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw when I'm transforming him there, first off, this tail, at least on my figure, is not easy to get together. This whole bottom section here is supposed to, it pegs together, which I have it pegged now, but it's a lot of the time when I transform him, this ends up coming apart up here because you have to kind of, the plastic here has to squish together to get this to peg. And you can see I've still got a gap along this whole section here that will not peg solid.
Which I think might be part of the problem that's so difficult, is because it's this really thin plastic that's completely hollow.
Yeah, and you end up with, this is what I don't like. He's really, you look at him, he's got some big hips there. He's really, really wide.
And I see what they were going for. They were trying to make it look more like the classic dinosaur, like the dinosaurs from the 50s and 60s that were kind of slow-witted looking and very big and kind of dumb.
Yeah, I suppose if you say that, you know, because the head is small in comparison to the rest of it, which is okay, but I really don't care for it. And you look at him front on, and once again, you've got this big, dark, empty gap there, which even if he's dead on, you still get, like, it'd be nice if he had kind of a little bit of a chest hanging down here or a belly or something.
Yeah, and as we said before, he does have a gimmick where his mouth will open. If you press it all the way back, his entire head will illuminate, which is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it is really nice. I mean, if you look from the side here when it lights up, you get actually this all glows, which is cool. I do really like that. It is kind of reminiscent of the games. There's a lot of that glowing line and those glowing accents all over them.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but I'm guessing the glow is probably supposed to represent when he shoots his fire breath.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised there was no projectile or anything with him, you know, which would be kind of weird for Grimlock, but in the game anyhow, you would think maybe they'd have a missile or something come out of here.
Yeah, some kind of fiery missile. And it is interesting to note, too, that the transformation is very, very similar to animated Grimlock. It's basically the same steps. You have to connect the tail, you have to put the head in the back. It's very, very similar.
Yeah, and you've got, as far as articulation goes, I mean, the arms can kind of wiggle around.
Yeah,
but
the arms are on ball joints, so you know what you get with that.
Yeah, and there's, although, you know, it is a T-Rex, so, you know, you're not going to get much out of his stumpy little front arms. The legs do have the same articulation as, you know, they'd be the arms in the robot mode. But for me anyways, in the alt mode here, there's no other way to put them because the tail is static, and you kind of want to set him up as a tripod, otherwise he kind of looks funny with his tail hanging up, I think.
Yeah.
So there's really no other way to pose him except for this.
No, he kind of becomes a brick in a way. There's just not much you can do with him in Dino mode, unfortunately. He does have some, I guess you could call this like toe articulation, which is cool, I guess, but it doesn't really help. There's just not much you can do with him, but you know, that's kind of par for course with Grimlock toys. Usually the Dino mode you just can't do that much with.
Yeah, so I think if you like Grimlock, he is a really good looking figure from certain angles in my opinion. He looks good on the shelf, but as a dino you're not really going to get any different poses out of him. And as a robot, you're not going to get a whole lot of choices because of how stiff that ratcheting is.
He's an instant buy for me personally, just because I'm a huge Grimlock fan. But he's got so many problems, just the size, the proportions, that I really can't recommend this Dino mode. If you are going to buy him, display him in robot mode, and even then you're not going to get too much out of it because the articulation is just a little bit limited. Just the overall look of this thing, it's got so much detail, so much paint on it. I mean, it's just really well designed for the most part.
Yeah, he is a really pretty figure, but there's a lot of other stuff out there I'd rather get, especially now you've got the 30th anniversary stuff coming out, which I think is a lot better quality than him. He feels cheap to me. Visually, he looks nice, but once you get him in your hands, the plastic in the mold feels cheap.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of play value with this guy. Overall, not the best Grimlock out there, but probably worth a buy if you're a fan.